Hey folks, it's Mr. Garten here, and I want to talk to you about jotting a little bit. I've got a new book that I haven't read before. As I read, I'm going to go through and show you a few of the jotting strategies that I use. I want to be very clear. When you jot, I want you to jot the way that works for you, not the way that works for me. So you're going to develop some of these strategies as you go through the year. You've probably already developed some from English 9 and before. So use what works for you. I'm just here to show you some things that work for me that may also work for you. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you even open the book is have somewhere to jot. So you've got a few options here. You can jot actually right in the book. So if this is a book that you own, it's not from the library, it's not from Mr. Garten's classroom library, you're not borrowing it from a friend, it's yours. You can write directly in it and just write in the margins and mark it up. That's my favorite option. But this book right here is from our classroom library. So I don't want to write all over it because I know that somebody else will probably go through and read this at some point and they probably don't want to be annoyed by my thoughts. Another option that you have is a bookmark. For a lot of my jotting, I'll use an index card as my bookmark. So it serves two functions. I can use it to mark the place that I am in my book, and I've also got some paper handy so that when I want to hold on to some thoughts or there's something I noticed from the book that I just need to write down, I can write it right on that bookmark and it stays with my book. One other thing, and the thing that might work best for you, is to use your personal writing notebook because this is something that you should always have with you for English related things. And there are a lot of pages because you're going to be doing a lot of jotting, especially in English 10. You might want to keep this open to the jotting section of your notebook, which if you set it up like mine, your jots will be right in the front of the notebook. Now, as I start reading, I always do a little bit of background building as I read a book. So I'll read the blurbs on the back or any recommendations or any summaries. With hardcover books, usually the summary is on the inside flap, and so I'll read about that. So I know that On the Come Up is by the author Angie Thomas, who some of you may be familiar with because she wrote The Hate You Give. This is the second book that she wrote as a follow-up to that. Based on the summary, it's about a girl named Bree. She's 16 years old and she wants to be a rapper. I also noticed this inscription, which kind of sings to me. It says, "For the kids with the SoundCloud accounts and the big dreams, I see you. And for my mom, who saw it in me first." Now, if this really sings to me, I might write it down in my notebook, but I'm just going to go because I don't want to spend more time jotting than I do reading. The general rule of thumb is out of a 10-minute period, you want to spend about 9 minutes actually reading and no more than a minute jotting things down. So let's begin reading. Might have to kill somebody tonight. Could be somebody I know, could be a stranger, could be somebody who's never battled before. It could be somebody who's a pro at it. It doesn't matter how many punchlines they spit or how nice their flow is, I'll have to kill them. First, I got to get the call. To get the call, I got to get the heck out of Mrs. Murray's class. Some multiple choice questions take up most of my laptop. The clock, though. Clock is everything. According to it, there are 10 minutes until 4:30, and according to Aunt Pooh, who knows somebody, DJ Hype calls between 4:30 and 5:30. I swear if I miss him, I won't do anything because Mrs. Murray has my phone, and Mrs. Murray's not one to play with. So I'm done with the first page. I might want to stop and briefly jot down some things like who Mrs. Murray is, the fact that this person has an Aunt Pooh, the fact that she's waiting for a call between 4:30 and 5:30. But honestly, these are things that I'll probably remember. They seem pretty important right off the bat, and they'll probably be reinforced. So I feel like I'm going to be able to hold on to those thoughts. I'm not going to write anything down just yet. She goes on. I only see the top of her sister locks. The rest of her is hidden behind her Nikki Giovanni book. Occasionally she goes, at some line the same way my grandma does during a sermon. Poetry is Mrs. Murray's religion. Everyone else cleared out of Midtown School of the Arts almost an hour ago, except for us juniors whose parents or guardians signed us up for ACT prep. It's not guaranteed to get you a 36, but Jay said I better get close since she paid these folks a light bill for this class. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I drag myself into this classroom and hand my phone over to Mrs. Murray. Now, I'm going to pause here. I'm just jotting some brief thoughts. Number one, this reminds me of, and this is a good strategy that you can use. This reminds me of, this is a good way to make connections. So anytime that you can say this reminds me of something, that's a connection, whether it's a text-to-text connection, text-to-world connection, or text-to-self connection. This reminds me of a different text called Frankly in Love, where the character in here opens up with talking about SAT prep. The difference is that he's talking about scoring really, really well on the SATs, whereas Bree here is talking about doing test prep for the ACTs. I'm also going to jot down the name Nikki Giovanni because you'll notice in books there are references, sometimes called allusions, to characters that you may not know or texts that you may not know. Nikki Giovanni is someone I've never heard of, but is clearly some sort of author, so I might want to look that up later at some point to build some background knowledge. Usually I'm cool with an entire hour of not knowing what the president tweeted, or getting texts from Sunny and Malik sometimes about stuff the president tweeted. But today, I want to go up to that desk, snatch my phone from the pile, and run out of here. Psst, Brianna, someone whispers. Malik's behind me, and behind him, Sunny mouths. I tilt my head with a, how am I supposed to know? I don't have my phone, eyebrow raise. Yeah, that's a lot to expect him to get me, but Sunny and Malik have been tight since womb days. Our moms are best friends, and the three of them were pregnant with us at the same time. They call us the Unholy Trinity because they claim we kicked in their bellies whenever they were together. So nonverbal communication, not new. Now, normally, I wouldn't stop to write twice on one page, and I've already stopped on page 4 to write. But we've got an introduction of a couple characters, so I'm just going to make note of them really quick. Sunny and Malik. I don't know much about either of them yet, other than they are in the same class as Bree. And they've been very close since, as she puts it, the womb. So since before they were babies. Going on. Sunny shrugs with an, I don't know, I'm just checking. Mixed in with, you ain't got to catch an attitude. I narrow my eyes at his little light-skinned hobbit looking behind. He's got the curly hair and the big ears. I don't have an attitude. You asked a dumb question. I turn around. Mrs. Murray eyes us over the top of her book with a little nonverbal communication of her own. I know y'all not talking to my class. Technically, we're not talking, but would I look like telling her that, verbally or non-verbally? 4:27. 3 minutes and that phone will be in my hand. 4:28. 2 minutes. 4:29. 1. Mrs. Murray closes her book. Time's up. Submit your practice test as is. The test. For me, as is means not a single question is answered. Thankfully, it's multiple choice. Since there are 4 choices per question, there's a 25% chance that I'll randomly choose the right one. I click answers while everyone else collects their phones. Everyone except Malik. He towers over me as he slips his jean jacket over his hoodie. In the past 2 years, he went from being shorter than me to so tall he has to bend to hug me. His high top fade makes him even taller. Bree, Malik says, did you do any of the shh? I submit my answers and sling my backpack over my shoulder. I did the test. As long as you're prepared to take an L, Breezy. An L on a practice test isn't really an L. I throw my snapback on, pulling the front down enough so it can cover my edges. They're a little jacked at the moment and will stay jacked until Jay braids my hair. Sunny beat me getting to Mrs. Murray's desk. He goes for my phone like the true ride or die he is, but Mrs. Murray grabs it first. That's okay, Jackson. She uses his real name, which happens to be my last name. His mama named him in honor of my grandparents, her godparents. I need to talk to Brianna for a second. All right, I'm going to pause here, and I'm actually going to go back and reread to jot some things down because there was a lot of information that I feel like is important that got packed into that last paragraph. So we were talking about Sunny. The narrator says that Sunny goes up and tries to grab the phone, but Mrs. Murray grabs it, and she says, that's okay, Jackson. So Sunny's name is Jackson. That's his real name. It also happens to be Bree's last name. So I knew that Bree was named Bree just because of the summary at the front. I haven't learned anything else about her name since then, but now I know that Jackson is her last name. And his mom, Jackson's mom, named him in honor of my grandparents, who are her godparents. So if I'm someone who's kind of an artsy person, I might draw a diagram here, sort of a family tree that shows that my grandparents are Jackson's mom's godparents. And then I'll go on. Sonny and Malik both look at me. How'd you do? My eyes are probably as wide as theirs. Do I look like I know? Mrs. Murray nods toward the door. You and Malik can go. It'll only take a moment. Sonny turns to me. And I'll stop right there since there's body words. So I'll let you wrap up this extraordinarily long video. I apologize for going over 10 minutes, but I just want to recap what to do when you're jotting. First of all, you should have somewhere to write, whether it's the book itself, a bookmark, or several bookmarks that you keep with it, or preferably your writer's notebook. As you're jotting, you should be spending, for every 10 minutes that you read, only about a minute jotting. You also want to make note of any words or lines that stand out to you. They could be very eloquently said, or they could remind you of something. For whatever reason it is that they're jumping out to you, you might want to write them down. Also write down the page number that they're on. You're going to want to pause once every page or two just to write something down and recap really quickly. Don't write a whole paragraph about what's happened in the last page. Just briefly summarize what characters are there, if there's been new characters introduced, if anything's developing with the plot. You can also use the sentence stems, this reminds me of, to make connections between other texts or yourself or the world at large. Or I wonder, if you're wondering about the way that the author is saying something or making a prediction about what will happen in the book later. And then finally, as you're reading, you're probably processing a lot of stuff and keeping it with you, but if there's more information than you're going to be able to hold on to, like connections between characters, you may want to stop to jot those down. Now, these are only a few strategies out of literally hundreds, and you probably have a lot more that you already know work for you. Continue to use those, but try to incorporate one or two of these strategies in as you are reading. Now go ahead, pick up your independent reading book, and try them out.